What's good, y'all? I'm your host, Seek the Truth. This is TikTok Deep Dives. Today we're going to deep dive an interesting subject, one that we're all certainly curious about, the Mendez brothers. The Mendez brothers, to my best of knowledge, were two brothers that ended up killing their parents. The case was a huge thing, with allegations of sexual assault, sexual abuse to the brothers. So, do you think they should be paroled, yes or no? So let's dive into it. First, the Mendez brothers story. Let's deep dive this. Snorkel face.
People think that these two brothers should be out of prison by now. The Menendez brothers are known for shooting their parents and unaliving them in their Beverly Hills mansion on August 20th, 1989. Jose and Kitty Menendez. When officers arrived to the house, they recall seeing something so horrific and gruesome, something that they assumed was a mob-style hit. A couple months went by and Eric Menendez decided to confess to his therapist, Dr. Oziel. Dr. Oziel had Eric's brother Lyle come into the appointment where he recorded their whole conversation. And that therapist's mistress went straight to the cops and told them everything. Eric and Lyle both confessed to what they had done to their parents, but the reason behind it will shock you. Now, I can't say full details on here because I could get in trouble, but Eric's father was SAing him his whole entire life, and he had told his brother Lyle about it. According to the brothers, the mother knew about it but didn't seem to do anything. Her father, Jose, was known to be very evil, and a lot of people, including his coworkers, didn't like him. The reason why they decided to take their parents' lives that day is because they feared for their own lives. People think that these two brothers should be out of prison by now. The Menendez brothers are known for shooting their parents and unaliving them in their Beverly Hills mansion.
Let's dive some more into this. Let's get more of a feel for the story.
So one night, these two brothers bust into their parents' living room, and they're each holding a pew-pew. And they start blasting, blam, blam, and they unalive their own parents. So the brothers, their names are Eric and Lyle, and they're 18 and 21. And these two are living the dream. They live in Beverly Hills with their parents, their family is rich because their dad is some kind of Hollywood executive. But then, one day, Eric and Lyle decide they've had enough of their parents, and they want to get rid of them for good. A few days later, their mom and dad, who we'll just call Mom and Dad are chilling in the living room, watching TV. And suddenly, boom, Eric and Lyle bust into the room, and they're holding guns, and they just start blasting. Like, blam, blam, they shoot Dad 6 times. Blam, they shoot Mom 10 times. And Dad dies immediately, but Mom, she's still alive. But she's hurt, and she's trying to crawl away. So the brothers run back outside to Eric's car where the ammo is, and then they reload, and then Lyle shoots Mom one last time and unalives her. The brothers then decide they need to cover their tracks. So they shoot Mom and Dad both in the knee to make it look like a mafia hit. And then they pick up all the shell casings so they can get rid of them. And then they drive to a nearby movie theater and they buy 2 tickets to see Batman, because seeing the movie is going to be their alibi. And after Batman, they return to the family home, and that's when they call 911. And they tell the operator they had just come home from the movie theater and they found their parents there dead. Minutes later, police show up, and Eric and Lyle tell them the same thing, that they just came home and found their parents there. And it works. Police believe them. I mean, in that moment, they have no reason to suspect them of any wrongdoing. In fact, police see that Mom and Dad had been shot in the kneecaps, and they start thinking, maybe this was a mafia hit. So basically, the brothers have just successfully gotten away with murder. And I don't know if they're celebrating or what, but pretty quickly, they go out, and with their dead dad's money, they start spending like crazy. They buy a couple of luxury condos, a Jeep Wrangler, a Porsche, a Rolex. Eric hires a $50,000 a year tennis coach, and Lyle buys a whole-ass Buffalo Wings restaurant. So within 6 months, the brothers had spent $700,000 of their dad's fortune. I mean, from the looks of it, things seem to be going pretty great for them. Until this guy tries to impress his girlfriend, and he screws everything up. We'll just call him Doc. Now, Doc is a psychiatrist, and one day he gets a little too close to one of his patients, and they start smashing. We'll just call the patient Mistress. Now, Doc is married with kids, but he doesn't care. He just keeps on smashing with Mistress on the regular. Now, Mistress isn't his only patient. Doc also has other patients, including one named Eric and another named Lyle. And Doc, he has regular therapy sessions with both Eric and Lyle. And one day, in one of those sessions, Eric comes out and tells Doc that he and Lyle had unalived their parents. And while Doc hears this and he continues to counsel them, he actually ends up tape recording one of their therapy sessions. So here's the thing about Doc. He apparently likes to flex, and when he's not at work, he likes to gossip about his patients to Mistress. And one day, he basically tells her, and by the way, those brothers in the news, Eric and Lyle, they're my clients, and they totally unalived their parents. They told me so. And then months later, Doc and Mistress's affair ends, and their breakup is apparently ugly. Like, real ugly. Allegedly, he assaults her. So Mistress, she gets pissed off, and she's like, this guy, and she steals Doc's tape recordings of his session with Eric and Lyle, and she takes them straight to the police because she wants to get Doc in trouble by accusing him of knowing about the murder but not reporting it. So police listen to the tapes, and they hear Eric and Lyle confessing to unaliving their parents, and they go out and they immediately arrest Lyle. Well, Eric turns himself in a few days later. So here's Eric's mugshot, and here's Lyle's. So now the brothers are in jail, and they're charged with murder. And they might get the death penalty for this, and this scares the shit out of them. So they sit in jail for 3 years before they finally get to go to trial. And there, the state argues that Eric and Lyle unalived their parents because they wanted to inherit their parents' fortune, which is why they were out spending all that money. But Eric and Lyle, they argue that they did it because their dad had subjected them to years of mental, physical, and sexual abuse. And they argue that getting rid of their parents was the only way out of that toxic situation. It's sort of a self-defense argument. Now, this self-defense argument is important because it would give them a manslaughter conviction instead of a murder conviction. And a manslaughter conviction would have a much lighter sentence. So 6 months later, both sides have made their argument and the trial ends. And unfortunately, they end up with a hung jury. So it's a mistrial. Then a year and a half later, they go back to court to try again with a new jury. But this time, the judge doesn't allow the brothers to present the allegations of physical and sexual abuse to the jury because of some legal precedent or something. Which means this time, the jury doesn't even have the option to convict them of manslaughter instead of murder. So of course, then Eric and Lyle are both found guilty of first-degree murder. And while, lucky for them, they don't get the death penalty, they're both sentenced to life in prison without parole. But here's the crazy thing. 27 years later, a former member of the famous boy band, Menudo, he comes forward with new information. He claims that back in the 80s, when he was 14, he was also a victim of sexual abuse by Eric and Lyle's dad. Because remember, Dad was a Hollywood executive and he worked with Menudo at the time. And this accusation is important because it gives credibility to the brothers' claim that their dad had been abusing them all those years. And if that's true, and if the brothers had proven in court that they had been abused by their dad, that would greatly strengthen their self-defense argument. And they would have gotten that manslaughter conviction instead of that murder conviction. And they would be out of prison by now. So now, with this new evidence and some other evidence people found, Eric and Lyle are actively petitioning to get out of prison. But for now, they're still there. Here's Eric's updated mugshot, and here's Lyle's. So shout out to Beverly Hills. So one night, these two brothers bust into their parents' living room, and they're each holding a pew-pew, and they start blasting.
They don't look that bad for being in prison that long. They ain't got no tattoos, none. Fuck, I'd be blown up, you know what I'm saying, face. So here's the gist of it. I mean, do you think these guys deserve to get out of jail? I mean, anyone's gonna dream up, you know. It is kind of suspicious that the other dude brings that forward, but shit, that's just life, I guess. Right? Here's an updated something.
Not guilty of
Breaking news, the district attorney has now made their decision on whether the Menendez brothers should walk free. Today, the DA held a press conference regarding their possible release. He said this decision was based upon new evidence that had been recently submitted. He said tomorrow he will recommend a resentencing for the Menendez brothers. With that, he is asking that their life without parole sentencing be removed. The brothers were serving 50 years to life, and the DA is now asking that they get parole. If they are issued parole, they would get released immediately. This is because at the time the crime was committed, they were under the age of 26 years old. Here is a clip of the DA saying so himself. Take a listen.
They have been in prison for nearly 35 years. I believe that they have paid their debt to society. I came to a place where I believe that under the law, resentencing is appropriate, and I am going to recommend that to a court tomorrow. What that means in this particular case is that we're going to recommend to the court that the life without the possibility of parole be removed,
I don't know why the
and that
fuck
they will be sentenced for murder, which, because there are
white
two murders
privilege
involved,
bullshit. That's what that is.
that will be 50 years to life. However,
Okay.
because of their age, under the law, since they were under 26 years of age at the time that these crimes occurred, they will be eligible for parole immediately.
To stay up to date on this case, make sure you click the playlist below.
Parole, they still
I'll
gonna
keep you
have
guys updated. What do you
conditions.
think? Drop in the comments.
They're gonna be on them like, you know what I mean? If you get out, you gotta take it on your back when you ain't supposed to get out. Cops gonna be fucking pulling you over for everything.
Meet the Mendez brothers, two brothers who, their parents, not allegedly, they came out and said, yup, we did it, we are parents, but people still want them to be released. Why? Well, because the Mendez brothers had a problem. Their dad was a Diddy. There go Pops right there. His name was Jose, and he was a music executive. Diddy said, I'm a music executive. Let me get to this next part. He was also accused of doing very inappropriate things to young males. Diddy said, y'all stay up. Now, the brothers also say this is happening to them. So one day their older cousin comes over. Lyle Menendez tells the older cousin what's happening. The older cousin immediately tells the mom. The mom grabs Lyle, brings him upstairs, and that's it. Lyle doesn't come back. So no one did anything. Nobody wants to cross that family line. Now, this part's important. Their dad was powerful. He was a music executive, and they had a house in Beverly Hills. And this means you can get away with a lot of things. You'll see what I mean in a second. So the Menendez brothers also tell their cousin, and their cousin's like young like them, so he's just like, damn. So the brother said, screw it, it's time to go confront our dad. And they especially did this because the younger brother went to the older brother and said, yo, bro, it's getting really bad. They tell their dad this has to stop. He says, no. And you better not tell anybody or there's going to be a problem. The brothers say, bet. They go to the store, and say, we finna see. But they didn't do anything. And actually, for several weeks, they just keep having conversations with their dad. It's not going anywhere. One day, they go home, and they see that their shed is locked. They took this as a sign that their dad was up to something, so they just ran in and started, They let them things sing. So they sit there, and they're just waiting for the police. But it's Beverly Hills, so no one calls the police. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, that's stupid, but you gotta understand, Beverly Hills in California is such a rich neighborhood that crime rarely happened. Neighbors said they heard but they literally couldn't believe what they were hearing, so they just kept doing what they were doing. The brothers come to their senses and say, yo, let's just say we wasn't here. So they leave, they come back, they call the police, and they say, yo, somebody just, our parents. The police come through, they say, yo, somebody just, y'all parents. The brothers said, yeah, but we ain't do it. The police said, now keep taking notes of the times. This is like early 90s. The police said, well, yeah, you couldn't have done it, and you look like good kids, and it's Beverly Hills. So the police leave, the brothers go, try to spend a bag, so they start spending money, like $700,000 to be exact in the following months. All money from their late father. The police go, damn, them boys running it up. Police chief said, what boys? The officer said, you know, the brothers, the Menendez brothers. The chief said, you mean the brothers whose parents just got, and we still can't find the people who did it? The officer's like,
So there you have it. There's a story. Do your own research. Again, this is for entertainment purposes only. I'm Seek the Truth, and this was the Mendez brothers. I'm signing off.